Hello, everyone. This is Mike from Dimensional Walking, and today I want to talk to you about a group of beings called the Blue Beings. And it seems like over the years, with my various amount of interviews and people I've talked to around the United States, uh, there's this group of beings called the Blue Beings, and they seem to be more than one kind of group. And the reason I say that is some of them have a little different features. Now, one of the features they do have, which is very common, is they have this kind of bluish blue skin, and some of it is profoundly blue, and some of them have these profoundly blue eyes. So, let me give you a little bit of a flavor that I read about recently of a person that had a really positive experience with a blue being. And this person's name is Leona Bloom. And she had a very positive experience. And she was confronted by two of these, she calls them beautiful, bright blue beings. And they were a little bit taller than herself, and their energy was enormous. I think they seemed to be very happy, they seemed to be very curious. Uh, they glazed. It seemed that they were able to glaze deeply into her mind or into her soul, and and they were like their eyes were just full of sparkles and love, and it was just a constantly wonderful positive experience she had. I think one of them stretched out his hand, or we don't know if it's a he or her, stretch out its hand and put the hand on her cheek, and it was like I say, it was a very positive experience, and this went on for several minutes, and then the two beings left. But she felt very good, I think, afterwards, and it was an experience she would never forget. Like most experiences with alien beings, you don't forget them. And most of the time, it's a very positive experience. Not always, for sure. I've had some experiences I personally have had with beings were not pleasant. But obviously the outcomes were not weirdly critical that something bad happened to me, because nothing has ever bad happened other than I had to confront several of them, which I've talked about in the past also. So that was a very positive experience, and you kind of get the gist of these beings were, again, their eyes, and these particular ones were very round, very human looking, and very happy and very loving. Okay, so that's the takeaway on that one. So, as you know, I lived in Utah twice, um, and probably for a total of probably almost 4 years. Rainbow lived in Utah for about a year and a half with me, one of the two times. So, one of the times I lived there, in my work, I would have a lot of contractors working for me, building things, either with the Olympics or with building facilities for some of the logistics people I worked for. So, anyways, sometimes we'd have a little extra time after work or whatever, and we'd chat. This one particular contractor, he was interested in the paranormal, and he wanted to talk to me about an experience that he had and one of his friends had. So we lived, Rainbow and I lived close to Big Cottonwood Canyon. We lived in Sandy, Utah. And so we lived up in that area. And he had told me a story, which was interesting because we knew the places he was talking about. I believe it's in Big Cottonwood Canyon. That's close to the Brighton Ski Resort, or at the end of it, that's where the Brighton Ski Resort is. And there's on the way up there, there's a lodge. I think it's called Silver Fork Lodge, and it's a cute little lodge on the side of the road. It has accommodations on top, and it has a wonderful restaurant. And many times Rainbow and I have eaten there, and we could look out and we'd see moose and, of course, deer and other creatures outside there. So it's always been a very positive experience. I even believe we have some coffee cups from them. I bought a couple of the coffee cups, and they had great coffee too. So, anyways, so we knew the general area, and he told me my friend. He told me that he had a friend that lived uh, behind that lodge. He had a cabin. There's a road, a couple of roads that go next to the lodge there, and goes back farther into the canyon. And his friend owned a nice little cabin back there. And one Friday night, they he had a party there for a bunch of, I think it was mainly guys, I believe. And he said they had a good time, et cetera, et cetera. And the area, if you're familiar with the Big Cottonwood Canyon, it's kind of a winding road that you have to take out several miles to get back to civilization, basically, back to Salt Lake City area or Sandy or some of those other suburban communities from Salt Lake City. So, anyways, he, after probably drinking and carrying on for several hours, he asked anybody could stay because it was kind of one of these cabins that had some bunks and etc. So, my friend, he decided to stay, and he stayed in a room that had several bunks, and he slept in the same room that the owner, that his friend, the owner. So they went to sleep, and everything was cool, but all of a sudden, there was some rustling or stirring, and he woke up, my friend, and he saw the owner of the place sitting up in one of the bunks and looking out the window. And so my friend looked out, and he could see some shadows that were moving quite rapidly back and forth. Couldn't really make out what it was. And this went on for several minutes, and he was watching. Not only was he trying to watch the shadows, but he's kind of watching the reaction from his friend that was like sitting up in bed and looking quite terrorized by what he was seeing. Now he had maybe a little different angle than my friend, but it was going back and forth. And then suddenly, whatever this thing was, or whatever was outside, just like went through, I guess, the window, through the wall, whatever, and came and looked at him. And he described him as about, I think he was about 6 foot tall, and had this very blue skin. Almost, it was like glowing blue. And he said it was absolutely stunning. Stunning, frightening, everything you could think. All emotions were piled in there. Okay? This thing stared through basically his friend. And it was just, his friend just froze, completely froze, as this thing was just staring at him. And he doesn't, to this day, he still doesn't know if this being had communicated with or whatever, but he remembers the blue skin, the glowing blue skin. He believes they had very almost glowing eyes. He seemed like there was blue. Again, the word blue keeps on coming up. And all of a sudden, this being is gone. It's absolutely gone. So they talked about it for a minute. Everybody then suddenly both went to sleep, and that was kind of it. That was the end of that conversation. Okay? So we'll get back to that in a minute, because there's something that kind of happened afterwards that kind of connects the dots a little bit. So then, where I'm going to connect a experience I personally had was, I had been to Mount Shasta a couple times in my life, and I would go up there and kind of walk up kind of the side of the mountain. Never got to the top or anything like that, but on the side of the mountain. And this particular time I'm thinking of, it was wintertime, so it was pretty cold, but there was a lot of really strong sun. And anyway, so I moved up. I walked up there, and got to a place where everything was melted. It was warm, fairly warm there, so I decided I was going to go ahead and meditate. And one of the reasons I wanted to go meditate, because I had heard people going on the side of the mountain and meditate, because there was a lot of type of strange beings that were living in caves in the mountain. Okay? So I did my meditation there, and suddenly a blue being appears in my meditation, and it was kind of in a cave setting, and it was just very, very similar. It was fairly, from human standards, I'd call it fairly ugly. It had kind of a curly kind of nose. It was actually, when I take it back, it wasn't. It was hard to say. It was kind of squatting over, so it was exactly hard to say. I'm going to guess it was probably 4 foot tall. Did not stand up. It was kind of gangly. It was blue. It was very blue skin. Eyes were somewhat different. They weren't really that round. They were more human from a standpoint. They were more slanted and more human. And for some reason, it was not happy with me being there and being meditating wherever I was. Now, I don't know if its cave or wherever it was very close, but it was not happy, and it pretty much told me, please leave, and don't come back to this particular area. Now, it didn't restrict me from the mountain or anything else, but it said, please leave. So, I honored that. Again, I didn't go into a cave. I was meditating, and apparently I picked up. By the way, talking about beings, there were some other beings that I picked up that were very loving and very wonderful. They weren't blue. They were more humanoid in robes, and I did a little bit of a meditation and just had a little bit of a communication with them as part of this session that I had. So, anyways, after that, after the blue being experience, that was kind of my end of my meditating on the side of the mountain there. So I came back down to the little town, and the rest is kind of history after that. So, anyways, that was my experience. I did get the feeling that he felt I was intruding. The one that I met at Mount Shasta, I'm not really sure why he did, because I really wasn't in his territory. But apparently I was close enough that he felt that I was intruding. So let's go back to Utah now. And so my friend said that I talked to him a second time, and I brought up the experience he had with his friend. And one of the things that I kind of quizzed him, I said, listen, there had to be a reason why this being came into the house, etc. And I said, are you sure that was the only time this guy had an experience like that? He says, you know what? After talking to him again, he told me that he was very close to where he lived there, where his cabin was. He had gone back about a mile, I think he said, and there was some caves back there. And he said he went in those caves, and he walked in them, walked around, and he had a really creepy feeling that somebody was watching him, and he didn't know how to take it, but he said he backed away and he walked out just from feeling this creepy presence, and he walked out. And so I said, well, I tell you what, I think I know what the problem was. Your friend went into this cave, and it was somebody else's home, basically, and went in there, brought his humanness into the cave, and if there would be that blue being was in there, he probably didn't take well to that at all. So what your friend basically was, he was trespassing. And I think what happened was, when he saw the blue being in his house, that was a message. That was a message saying, hey, don't come into my cave without some type of permission or an offering or something like that. And my friend told his friend, and he seemed to say that's reasonably possible. Sure. And I think he said that he was not going to go up into that cave ever again. Now, I would tell you this, because I've gone into caves, or I've gone into areas, and typically if I think I'm going to have an encounter with any type of being, I would ask for permission to come in, or I would bring an offering, maybe food of some sort, etc. And if the being or whatever is in there says it's okay, then you can enter, and you shouldn't have any issues. But anyways, I think that's what happened in this particular case. I think he came into something. I don't think he had any bad intent to come into this place, but and these were old. By the way, I didn't tell you this. These were old mines, and one of the reasons there was a little bit of a theory that seems to make a little bit of sense. Those particular mines were silver mines, And I don't know if you know anything about silver. That if you take silver, if you let's say you ingest silver in some way, there's some people use it as herbal supplements. I'm trying to think of the silver, what it's called, but anyways, you can actually turn blue. You can actually, if you take too much of this, your skin will turn blue. Now, somebody told me one time, a psychic, I think, and maybe take it for what it's worth, that some of the silver mines where these some beings have lived have ingested or been exposed to way too much silver, and that's where some of the color came. Now, I don't think it's the same. Again, it's not the same blue beings that the lady, the story I told you about, Leona, told about her encounter, because I believe those are off-planet type beings, and the ones I'm talking about in these caves, although they are blue, I think they became blue for other reasons, and they've been in these caves for a long time. Now, I've talked to spelunkers that have come across what they thought were beings that had a somewhat of a look of a blue tint to them, and they would find them deep in caves when they're way inside, or they get a glance of them from the eye, and sometimes quickly thereafter there would be you'd hear some noises, or a rock would fall or something like that, and typically that kind of makes you back out and get out of that area. So anyways, well, with all that said, that's pretty much it on the blue beings. I think there are different types. I think some are wonderful. I think other ones just want to keep their home and their territory and their cave private to themselves. So basically, if you go into caves, and especially if they're mines, I think you should be very careful, because who knows? You could really run into one that's a real rogue and could cause some real problems for you, especially inside of a cave. Anyways, so that's it. If you have any comments, please comment. If you like us, like us. And if you want to send us a private email, you can send it to dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. We need your subscriptions. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much, and goodbye.